Morning. Thank you everyone for joining us. So let's get to it. Today's agenda. Today's agenda is to answer any of your questions that you may have. I'm pretty excited for this. Some of my friends around the industry have been kind of chatting to me on LinkedIn, and Joey is actually preaching this up about stump the expert. So we're gonna get to that today, and hopefully we can answer all of the questions that you guys have, and really I guess make you feel better, or maybe explore new workflows within Bluebeam Review. A little bit about us, right? So TopCon Solutions is the retail division to TopCon Positioning Systems. We are a complete solutions provider with measuring and control hardware systems and office software solutions through our partnerships with Autodesk and Bluebeam. Now, we also we do training and technical support as well. So we do field troubleshooting, local service and repair, and then we have a very wide range of field supplies and accessories in our store. So a little bit about me. My name is David Campbell. Some of you I've seen in my webinars before. Welcome back. For those of you who have not been to a webinar recently, I am an application specialist with the TopCon Solution Store. I am a Bluebeam certified instructor as well as a Bluebeam certified consultant. Okay, I've been doing this for I think like 4 or 5 years now. Just working with many different workflows within Bluebeam Review, Studio workflow, Studio Prime, markups, takeoff and estimating, just a lot of different ways to utilize the program and to get the solution that you're kind of looking for with it. So let's get to it, right? Starting with these questions. So I did receive 2 pre-generated questions that I really wanted to get to first, and then I'll go ahead and roll into any of the chat or the questions that any of you may have. So with my first questions here, the first one is, how do I customize interactive stamps? So that's actually a very good question. Well, I mean, all of them are good questions, but we can dive deep into a little bit more of these kind of advanced workflows in Bluebeam Review. And when we get into the interactive stamps, that's really when we start seeing that JavaScript integration. So there's a couple things that I want to reference for this. One is when you actually get into the stamp itself. So when you download the stamps, you'll go to Bluebeam's website, which I can show you all that here. It's window, there it is, web tab. And we'll just go to Bluebeam Review, and this is actually gonna be a nice transition into the second question as well. I'm gonna go to the review extensions. Now, in the review extensions, what you're gonna see is that it's under Bluebeam technical support, but there are free downloads here for your tool sets, the stamps, profiles, different dictionaries, things like that. This is where you're going to find the interactive stamp. So for anyone that doesn't know what an interactive stamp is, it's literally when you go to place this stamp onto the document, it pops up with a JavaScript box, like a dialog box, and allows you to enter information into these stamps. So they're customizable, right? And they're interactive. So the question here is, how do we customize these stamps, right? Well, there's a couple different things, as I said, that I want to talk about with this. When we download these stamps, what you're going to see is that the stamp will download with 3 different items. You're going to see a instruction PDF, the single stamp, and then a batch interactive stamp. Okay. So with each one of these stamps, if you get into the instructions, so I've opened one of those up here with the submittal project, you'll see that it actually goes through and walks you through each one of these steps on what you need to do to kind of customize these stamps. So these are a great resource when you're getting into it. Now, I still want to show this anyways. I just wanted to let you guys know that's where it is. And then we're going to talk about this for a second. So if I get into the stamps here, and let's say I get into, which one did I got? I got the submittal project. We'll grab that one, the submittal project here. Okay, so when I get into my submittal project, what you're going to see is, of course, we have our form fields, right? So if I open up my forms tab, bring that up, okay, we can see all of my different form fields that I currently have, all right? Now, with these form fields, I'm going to drag this properties bar over to the other side here so we can kind of interact with these and pull some of these properties here. When I get to the checked by, you're going to see, of course, the name, right? Checked by, the actual text here. So I need to, I guess, talk a little bit through this. There's actual text, right? There's the text box here that's going to describe what this is, and then you're going to have the form field next to it, okay? The big thing about these text boxes and these form fields is that, well, one, they're going to be interactive in the sense, of course, of telling you what it is, but two, we need to understand that the properties, the subject kind of information here, the name of this form field, okay? This is a big thing when we're going into customizing these interactive stamps. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get into the code a little bit, and I'm gonna show you guys, well, everyone on here, about what kind of like this code looks for and how it communicates with these different form fields and the properties of them. So to find that, the JavaScript, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the form. So we're going to go tools, form, and then we go JavaScript. This is where you're going to find that stamp code, okay? And what you'll see is inside of this stamp code here, you'll see your field checked by, right? So that's directly looking at my form fields here. And it's looking for that description checked by default function, and it returns the collaboration user. The date, okay? Again, date, supplier, all of this stuff, it's written out right here, right? If I wanted to add another, let's say another field to this, one way to do this is to simply copy and then paste. Now I need to, of course, tab this over to retain that, push that over to retain my my spacing there, okay? Now, what we can do, of course, is start changing the subject information to match what we want with our new form field, or our new field inside of our interactive stamp. Of course, these forms that, well, the form fields, of course, like I said, directly kind of interact with that. Now, the PDF that I was showing you guys here, that's going to walk you through the entire thing on how to really get into it using those text boxes and referencing them back to those form fields. So those documents are there. Great thing. I hope that answers that question, because essentially once you kind of go through and customize it, you can save it, of course, and then just keep using. Now I like using a save as, right? So I have a couple different types for those stamps. Oh, actually, I almost forgot, and it's very important. You guys see that there's a final form field here called calculation. Do not delete that form field. This specific box here actually includes the scripting for the code itself. So if I scroll down into the properties, you're going to see it has a calculation field, and it says warning, do not edit. So I'm going to go ahead and look at it here. But this is the scripting that kind of makes the stamp itself work. It kind of kicks out that JavaScript box as soon as we place it, okay? So we want to keep that calculation. And typically I'll tell people it's great to start with a stamp, like one of the interactive stamps that Bluebeam gives us. In that sense, we can kind of utilize some of the stamp code that they have, such as this one. so we don't have to recreate the entire wheel, but you can go ahead and customize that stamp with, again, those form fields and text boxes as much as you need to. But starting with something like this is going to give you that kind of capability to place it, and of course, bring that dialog box up. So I do advise starting off of one of their templates. All right. So for my next question, it was, is there anywhere else we can download tool sets other than Bluebeam's website? So they have a specific workflow that they're looking to kind of use, and they're looking for specific tools within Bluebeam Review. If not, what advice can you give us for creating tools and not having to recreate the wheel? So I do hear that a lot, actually. So we talked about the review extensions on Bluebeam's website, and of course they do have free downloadable tool sets here. Now, some of these are just not going to work for everyone. A lot of these tool sets are great, and what I would typically recommend is if you can use some of them, go ahead, pull them down, download it, and pull those. When you pull these tool chests in, or pull the tool sets into your tool chest, don't be afraid to kind of take different pieces from one, create a new tool set, right? And then take different kind of pieces from them and then delete them out, delete whatever you don't need. Now, another thing I'm going to tell you is that unfortunately at this time, I haven't seen any like free websites that we can go to find some of these more customized or focused, like workflow focused or discipline focused tool sets. Now, I do have a couple ideas on what we can do, though, so you're not having to recreate the wheel on something like this. One would be to, of course, utilize your snapshot tool. If you can print some, let's say, some blocks from CAD on the typical symbols, or let's say Revit, whatever design program that you're using, or if you're, let's say, communicating with a sub, and or a consultant, what have you. If you have typical symbols that you utilize for these and you want to use them in Bluebeam as markups, just have them place them on a default sheet. And if you print them out, send them into PDF, you can snapshot those and we can turn them into, of course, Bluebeam tools. So I hit Control V. Okay, so the snapshot works like a copy and paste tool. It's going to allow us to directly take from the content itself. And again, if we have a symbol legend, or if you have like just images, or I'm saying, excuse me, not images, but tags or anything like that you want to pull from the PDF itself, you can go ahead and pull that with the snapshot. And then if you want to maybe color it so it looks different, if you right click on that, you'll find change colors. And this is where you can go ahead and change any of the colors that you may need for that. Of course, a nice right click will add that to our tool chest. And I'll just put it in my tools. And there it is. Okay. So it's a nice kind of simple process that we can do. And I would like to say that I wish there's more resources that we could have to reach out for other tool sets. An idea that I did have, if anybody wants to do it, reach out to me and let me know. I will gladly host a project. And if we have different individuals who would like to share their tool sets, let me know. I'll create a project. Like I said, I can invite whoever we need to invite, make it an open kind of project, and we can host different tool sets there and allow people to, access it and download these tool sets to utilize. If anyone is interested in something like that, of course, let me know and I can set it up. All right. Now, that was it for the pre-generated questions. That I received those before the webinar, so I wanted to get to those. Does anybody else have questions? Let's hear them. See if there's anything. Nothing in the chat yet. Diana, do you have anything in the questions?
Let me go ahead and look here. Don't be shy, everyone. If you have any questions, this is definitely a great time to ask. and we'll give everyone some time there. Now, David, I myself am not a Bluebeam expert per se,
Hmm.
but I feel like I've been on quite a few of these webinars now, and I had a question myself. As I
Okay.
was saying earlier, we know that the release of Revu 20 came out this year, and I wanted to ask out of the new features if you had a favorite.
Oh yeah, actually I do. The poly length tool is one of my favorite measurements in terms of trying to measure for pipe, any conduit, things like that. It's a nice segmented tool. I'm going to show this one off actually. Thank you for that question, Diana. So if I go to Tools, Markup, I'm sorry, Measure, it's a measurement tool, and I find poly length. This, of course, it's a nice older tool, but again, it's a polyline that gives us those segmented kind of measurements. And specifically with this tool, we can add in a overall rise or drop, which again is nice for piping, conduit, that kind of stuff, especially if I'm trying to figure out what my segment lengths are, if that's important, where they join, things like that. Now, the reason that this one is my favorite for Revu 20 is the fact that they've finally given us, sorry, excuse me, they've finally given us the capability to, well, customize this tool with the custom line styles. So we've had for a while with the actual polyline markup, we've had the capability to create our own line styles, customize it for, let's, cold water, hot water, or sanitary sewer, whatever it is. We can use those line styles to kind of reflect that on the PDF. It really does help with design review, but I also feel like it helps with maybe anyone that's not directly involved in the design itself. They're not a draftsperson, but they are, again, looking at these drawings or drawing something out for the draftsperson to understand. This is a great conceptual kind of environment for that. At least somewhere to start, right? We can draw that line out and say, okay, we want these lines here, these lines here. And again, with these custom line styles, I really just feel like that goes a long way to aid in that communication and kind of collaboration as well. When you of course start thinking about times like today, where everyone, most people, I guess not everyone, but there are a lot of people working from home or kind of just working in different areas to abide by the regulations that we have, and being able to, again, share these line styles to anyone on your team, but also maybe using PDFs to start with, sending those off to the draft person, taking those documents back in our PDFs, right? And then being able to do the design review, all that kind of stuff. Huge portion to that. And I think, again, just being able to add to that communication with these different line styles and being able to share it is awesome. All
Thank you
right.
so much for that insight there, David.
Yeah,
I
that was a
do
long one.
have No, you're fine. I do have let's see, a question here. So, is there a setting to let me save documents back into a studio project without having to be in the studio tab?
Yes, actually there is. That's a great question. It took me a little while to find that one as well. If you go to Review and then Preferences, and if you go to the Studio tab here, you'll find Open and Save Files to Studio from Toolbar Only. You want to uncheck that. As soon as you uncheck that, if I'm in this construction set B here, let's say I get a revised set of the drawings, or I have someone fill out an RFI, a submittal, what have you. I have any document, a form, someone fills out a form. I want to place it into my project. At this point, all I need to do is go File and Save As. Now, it did not take me into it because I forgot one step. I didn't sign into Studio first. So make sure you do sign into Studio first. And there we go. Once you sign into Studio and it pulls up your stuff, then we can go File, Save As, and then you'll see it pulls me right into that project. So I can choose any project that I need to. Let's say my construction project here. And then I'll go into one of my folders, and let's just say I'm going to put this into well, I didn't make myself a PDF one here, but I can essentially just save it wherever I need within this project. Now, also kind of thinking about that, we now have the access to open documents from those projects. So if you're again storing forms or RFI submittals or images, what have you, you can go ahead and grant access to anyone to open those documents as well as save them back onto the project. All
Okay,
right.
awesome. Thank you. I do have another question here. So, is it possible to connect the CSV summary printed from review back to the markups list and review? Sorry if I
Yeah.
butchered that.
No. That's a great question, actually. So I'm going to jump over to a quantity takeoff profile here real quick. And I'm going to do a couple more poly length measurements. Let's just get an area. I'm going to make this document. Now, I have skipped a very important step. I'm going to calibrate this real quick. I'm just placing these markups on here so I have something to look at when I print this CSV summary. But yes, essentially what we're going to look at is, well, let me take a step back. Yes, if you have the extreme version, right? What we're looking at is called quantity link. And as long as you have the extreme version, you can essentially connect any CSV summary that you print back out to the PDF itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as, I'm going to go ahead and put this on my desktop. Okay. And I am going to go ahead and take this out to CSV format. That's fine. All right. And it'll open this up. Now, as soon as, here we go, wall area, depth, volume, area. There we go. So there's area there. Here's some of my length. Now I obviously should have went through and filtered some of this information beforehand, turned on some of these columns, things like that. So this would look a lot better. But again, let's say I want to connect the area here back to my document. So every time I get an updated area, it's going to reflect, okay? Now, this is a very cool workflow if you already have a document like an Excel spreadsheet where you have a lot of macros or micros formulas essentially stored in this document. And let's say that you have a area within the PDF that you need this information to go and it's going to populate all of your other numbers, right? What we can do is right click inside of that cell that you want to connect and then quantity link it. So we'll go ahead, create. And then I'm going to go ahead and find my file, which is going to be that construction set B on my desktop. And then what we're going to look at the area and we're going to find either a subject. So typically, of course, you could go ahead and name, instead of just using an area measurement, we could name it for the specific type of flooring we're looking for or whatever it is, okay? And then you can name your cell, and this is where it connects it, okay? So it's completely gray. If I go back into review, and I use another couple of these area measurements here. Now, obviously, this is very rudimentary, right? But if I go back into Excel, it didn't update for me there. Oh, probably because I need to save. No, why is, uh-oh. Let's go ahead and try this again. I'm gonna save it there and we'll see, because I may not have done that one right. Oh, I'm using this one, that's why. Good Lord, Dave. Okay, so let's go ahead. I need to open that one back up. I need more coffee. That's what it is. It's what it is. I got my coffee here, but I'm trying not to drink it as much in front of all of you. Let me get back into this, and I'll open up construction set B here. I connected the wrong flooring apparently, or the wrong area. Except, let's go here, create, because I'm using the flooring, add files, construction set B. Okay. We're going to take our area of our area measurement, but we want the flooring. That's fine. Now, see, that time it automatically updated, so it's doing what it's supposed to. So we see it just changed from that 326.7 to the 3628. Now, if I go back into review again, and I come back and I grab this area measurement, there we go. Right, now, file, save. I shouldn't need to every time. Oh, I'm minimizing things. See, it did not update that time. Typically, it's supposed to go ahead and update for me. Well, there it goes. There it went. So I right click and I went into edit and just kind of forced it to do it again. But typically, it should go ahead and connect and give me those options. Right now, it's wanting me to refresh it. But there it is. Essentially, that's the best way that we've been able to connect that CSV to the markups list, is typically through your subjects again, or any labels, anything that you can reference and kind of filter down through for these different markups and measurements.
All right, awesome. On to the next question. And like I said earlier, if you have any questions throughout the presentation at any time, feel free to ask them. We do have another question here coming up. So how do we take layer information into a Bluebeam Studio session? Can markups retain that layer information?
Yes, actually, that's another good question. So yes, when we go to take, let's say, markups or documents into a studio session, if you do have layer information, what we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and maybe add a couple more here. We're going to add a webinar layer. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and save. You want to save, I'm sorry, I'm clicking all over, but you want to save this configuration. That's what you want to do. Now, let's say I'm going to turn off the webinar layer. I save my configuration. When I load this document into the session, it remembers this, again, configuration of my layers. Now, tying back to the second portion of that question, is it possible to have these markups retain that layer information? Yes, it is. So let's find any of these. Actually, I'm going to switch my profile. I'm going to go back to maybe my review profile here. So in my network tool set, I don't think I have any of these labeled yet. No, I don't. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these tools and I'll place it here. I apologize about my dogs barking. Somebody must be walking by. So with these tools, right, once it's been placed, or as you're creating it, you can go ahead and get into the properties of this, and you can add this or set it to a layer. So if I find my layer here, I go to, let's say, flooring, even though it's not a flooring, we're going to do that. We're going to put it right on flooring. And just to test it, if I turn off flooring, there it goes. Okay. So once this comment has been placed into that layer, if I take it and then place it into the tool chest, so we're going to place this one right in my tools instead, notice it populates with that layer information. Okay, so even if I double click on it, I make it brand new, it's going to retain my layer. So come back again. All right, so essentially, once you get into the session, If you have tool sets that you're sharing or utilizing for these session reviews, you can place these tools directly onto, even if the document has multiple layers, right? What you're going to find is when you load up that document into a session, once it's loaded, you can't adjust it, right? But if you load it up there with everything, you're going to have everything there. If you go through and you assign these different tools to the layers, they're going to automatically, again, kind of populate or go to that layer that you have inside of, well, inside of the layers tab there, but inside of the session, they're going to automatically kind of just assign themselves to that layer as they're placed. It's a great workflow for, at least that I've found, for design review or really just maintaining organization of that document, being able to turn those layers on and off as you need to review different things. All right, any other questions?
Okay, let's see here. All right, so if you wouldn't mind sharing some insight here, David, into when sharing a tool set, is it possible to lock the tool set so users cannot modify the contents?
Oh, yeah, another good question. Yes, so for shared tool sets, let's say you're storing them on a network. Actually, I went through and made a couple of them here. So when you are the administrator, when you create a tool set, what you'll notice is that it populates with like a little lock on it, right? And you can essentially control the lock or unlock of that tool set. This is very important. So this little lock right here. If I take my network tool set, and right now I have it exported and I share it, let's say, to my OneDrive, in this sense, a network or shared location, okay? Once I store this tool set there, anyone who has access to that location, access to that folder, permissions, things like that, they'll be able to access this tool set and import it in. Now, I'm going to talk about that one again because I don't really want to use the term import. I want to use the term add, but we'll talk about that again here in a second. They'll be able to bring it into review. Now, the big thing is, as long as you as the administrator keep this tool set locked, that's fine. You can essentially, anyone would be able to use the tool set, but they will not be able to change it. Even you, when I go to add something in, if I right click this and let's say I want to add this to my network tool set, it's going to say that I have a lock on it. And do I want to unlock it so I can put this tool into that tool set? No, I don't want to do that. So you can control that, again, that tool set and what tools are modified and how. If someone communicates with you that they want to go ahead and adjust that tool set, okay, you can go ahead and unlock it and let them adjust it. So we just click on the lock here. Now anyone is free to adjust it if they need to, and then we can just lock it back up when we're done. It's a very, very awesome workflow. Now, I did want to also talk about this. I was just thinking about it. I alluded to it earlier. When you go to bring these tool sets in, when this is a shared tool set, you want to hit add, okay? And then we want to go to existing. We'll find it, grab that tool set, whatever it is, and then bring it in, okay? At that point, it's going to keep that connection with the shared tool set. If you just import it, if you import that tool set, it brings it in as it is, and it's not going to change. It's just literally bringing in like that portion of it exactly as it is right then. But again, add and then bring in that existing. It's going to keep that connection with that network shared tool set.
All right, thank you. And I do have another question here. I think they're asking in like a general terms or
Mhm.
in broad terms here. But it says, in your opinion, what is a tool or Bluebeam review functionality that may be, excuse me, most underutilized?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good one. Oh, you know what? Actually, I have a perfect answer for that. And well, I mean, maybe underutilized. I see it as underutilized, and that's going to be the dynamic fill tool. I think this tool in itself is awesome. Whether you're doing wall takeoffs, you're doing piping, ducting, you're doing flooring, really, I mean, I guess it's great for a takeoff kind of workflow, but also great for naming spaces, placing polygon markups into a specific area. It kind of depends on the workflow, I guess you're using here. In the takeoff workflow, it's got to be dynamic fill. This tool is great. I know there's a lot of people out there that are a little bit upset about the size of the circle, right? Well, I've noticed that if you actually take down the boundary size and the fill size, your circle gets quite a bit smaller, okay? So we can take it down and kind of make it fit into almost everything that we need, right? It's not gonna be able to, I think I have it turned all the way down here. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get it much lower than that. But right now it's trying to make a boundary. But essentially when I click in there, it's going to go ahead and start filling in wherever I need it to, right? This is, again, really great for those takeoff workflows or even just measurement workflows when you're trying to get an idea of wall types, or let's say that you're trying to get an idea of piping, ducting runs, anything like that. It's a great tool for that. Now, let me think in any other workflows, what might be underrated? Oh, actually, you know what? There's another great tool that I think is also kind of underused, and that is the search function, the search tool. So if we can combine the search tool, whether you're looking for text inside of a spec sheet, things like that, we can go ahead and search, change that, underline it, strike through, do all that fancy stuff. It's a great workflow, but we can also do visual searches. This is another huge, I want to say, takeoff workflow too, but also just counting in general, QA, QC kind of thing. We can go ahead and search any document for a visual kind of image, whether it's tags, it's water closets, labs, cleanouts, what have you. We can search for these specific images or symbols, and then we can also count it. It'll tell us how many of these objects that we have either on our single document, like the single page, or a multi-page document. It'll go through and count all of them. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's not 100% perfect, right? You could get a great vectorized document like this one here, and it still might miss a couple. You got to adjust your sensitivity, right, for your kind of computer, adjust that sensitivity bar and try to get it as close as you can. I like the little manual process afterwards. I know we want to all get to an automated workflow, but I like the verification of knowing, I can go through these documents. It's got most of them. It's got 80, 90% of it. And I can just go through and right click on that count tool and say, okay, let's resume this count, and I'll pick up a couple more. But I'm doing that anyways to, again, verify that it did get them all. So while I'm doing it, I'm just kind of going back and double checking. But I think those two tools are very underused, but awesome tools.
All right, thank you. I believe those are all the questions that I see here on my end. I don't know if you have any other questions you wanted to get to today or any other additional insight you might have for us here.
Well, I'm trying to think of anything else I could share.
And if you have any questions, please let us know either in the chat or the questions pane. But thank you so much to everyone who has asked a question today. They've been
Yep.
great.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely awesome questions today. Thank you very much. Let me try to think here on what else we could talk about. I think, well, I guess since we're kind of getting into the last few minutes of the presentation here, another, I talked about it during the webinar, but that filter list, I think this one is actually pretty huge for us moving forward, just because we can start, creating and saving these filters that we kind of, want to utilize. Let's say I want to do a custom filter and, kind of go through and build this for, let's say, want my subject to equal the area measurement. Okay, cool. My label, we want just my flooring. Okay, cool. And I'm going to go ahead and save this filter. There it is. Okay, so as soon as I get into my filter list, I can go ahead and just turn on that flooring. So this is great for, obviously, when we're going to kick out those summaries, whether you're going to CSV or you're going to PDF. If you have someone that you're looking to give a report to, or just take whatever, like specific information and give it to them, typically, of course, we did that with a filter anyways. But with the new filter list, what we can do is save these, and then you can, again, just kind of go through clicking which filter you want to enable, and also building off of each other, which is pretty nice. But again, it's not only going to help for printing those reviews or placing those summaries, it's also going to help with actual review itself, design review itself. So if you're looking for specific comments, whether they have statuses that you've placed, whether this has been reviewed or not reviewed, or this has been adjusted in the drawing, this has not been revised yet, whatever it is, we can go ahead and start building out these filters to help us with that design review process itself, in terms of just setting up pre-generated filters that you can go ahead and click through, and then we can see the specific comments that have to do with those filters. So I think that's another good thing that I wanted to show.
Okay, I
Actually,
do have another question here, David.
okay.
Okay, so can coordinate systems be applied to a drawing that may relate back to a 3D model?
That's a very cool question. That's a very cool question. So, I mean, that's also a hard one, because I'm going to say that Bluebeam will keep, if you print like point data, it will keep some of the information from those points within the PDF itself. Now, in terms of a specific coordinate system, if somebody's going to do, let's say, layout from a PDF out in the field, they can utilize that. But in keeping a coordinate system, no. I would say that you're not going to be able to like acquire the coordinates or anything like that. I mean, of course, if you share that information either by, again, printing some of those points to PDF and making sure that you're utilizing a vectorized PDF, or actually, if we talk about it, a 3D PDF. If you place points within a 3D PDF and you look at that 3D PDF, you will be able to see the GTP if you're using Autodesk Point Layout in this instance, but you will be able to see the point data with that in the properties. So again, we can kind of pull that out there, but I don't think the PDF itself will keep the coordinate data. If we tried to, I don't even think we could do a spot coordinate or anything like that. I don't think that the coordinates will transition, but again, if you share that information in the PDF for someone to look at, I think it helps kind of get that point across, especially if they're doing layout from a PDF, or if you create that 3D PDF. Actually, let me think about it, because that's a really good question. I'm kind of wondering if that was one of our guys or what that was. But if we get into, again, the 3D PDF, kind of wondering if we have the X, Y. I know, I'm wondering if we have the Z. No, we do not. We have just the X, Y. So no Z there, just the X, Y. Okay. So yeah, I don't think that one's gonna be good, because if we can't take the Z axis, it's not gonna share our coordinates. Great question though. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, so it looks like that may have been the last question for us here today, David.
Oh,
If
all
we'd
right.
like to go ahead and wrap things up, or if anyone has any other questions, definitely let us know. I think David's going to bring up the last little ending slides here, so I'll let you go ahead and wrap some things up, and I'll say goodbye to everyone before we end the webinar for today.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for the great questions. I was kind of hesitant coming into this because I wasn't sure if anyone was going to ask any questions. I mean, I'm excited, right? Because I think we get to dive down deep into some of the inner workings of Review. But thanks again for all those questions. Thanks again for your interactivity. Thanks again for joining us, right? Um, as Diana said earlier when we were on our website, there are several tips and tricks videos on our YouTube page, but of course you'll see them on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I go over several different workflows, whether it's making smart tools, tips and tricks for form fields. So if you are trying to get some of these interactive stamps to work and you're going through those form fields, if you need to, um, get some tips on how to, adjust those form fields or forms itself, we have a video for that on our YouTube channel. Feel free to check those out. Those are a good resource. I'm constantly making new ones, trying to figure out what content is going to be helpful to everyone out there. So not only watch them, but if you guys have feedback for us in terms of future videos that you may want to see, let us know. Reach out and let us know. I'm always happy to take feedback and again produce some useful content. Speaking about that, our next Bluebeam webinar. So we're going to have another Bluebeam webinar on Friday, December 4th from 9 to 10 Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to dive down into just the basics of the Bluebeam Review markups. All right, now thank you again for joining us. And thank you all again, I guess. Thank you all again for joining us. And I give you guys back some time in your day. Happy Friday. Hope you all have a great weekend. And I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Like David said, so there are perks to, joining our live webinars here, and sometimes one of those is to give you a little insight as to what's coming up, because that webinar that he just mentioned, we don't have that posted quite yet, but the next one will be December 4th. That is another Friday from 9 to 10, and that should be a great webinar coming up here. So please save the date there, check your calendars and see if you can join us. And like he was saying, please definitely feel free to reach out. Our email info@topconsolutions.com, our web line there. We do listen to your feedback, and proof of that is actually that upcoming webinar on December 4th. So that topic was actually chosen by our audience in a previous webinar. We launched a poll, and that came out to be the most requested webinar topic for us to present on, specific to Bluebeam Review. So we definitely look forward to seeing you all, hopefully on December 4th, and have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone.